This is episode 13 of Art, Why I Stuck with a Junkie Jazz Man. In episode 12, my daughter's father and stepmother believed Rolling Stone when they said that Art Pepper was a monster, and they raced away to Princeton, New Jersey, so that I was out of contact with my daughter. There was nothing I could do, and so I focused on art. In chapter 13, I describe my dawning appreciation of his personality and his of mine. Next section is called Rutra, spelled capital R, U-H-T-R-A. After our beginning, I established a routine with Art. We met at my house on our lunch breaks. He drank Mickey's, smoked, and talked. I'd get him going chronologically, starting with who his parents were and how they met. As I said, his initial enthusiasm waned even before I began my inquisitorial routine. He drank a lot at these sessions and sometimes was clearly wrecked by more potent substances. He got loaded because he liked it, and also to hush the constant self-critical voices in his head and the doubt in his heart. Those cripplers were constant with him, and later I saw how they operated when he performed his music. He often dismissed his best work when he was sober, but delighted in less exciting stuff when he was high. As we worked, as I watched him nod out in mid-sentence, I found him repulsive and stupid. I'd watch his cigarette ash lengthen and drop onto my Madras draped over stuffed chair, or onto his pants. From my reclining position on the floor, in the middle of my transcribed pages with their notes, scribbled current questions, notebook, questions that came up while I listened, and coffee, I'd call his name or kick at his foot and marvel at his smooth, practiced surfacing. He'd continue, sometimes logically, the sentence he drifted off in. He'd tip his cigarette automatically into the ashtray, even if it was too late, then glance and brush away the fallen ash. On those tapes, I hear his standard alibi. I'm just tired, baby. And my snide, yeah, or my nagging, and I wince. I don't know who I disliked most at those moments. Art with his defensive, whiny lying, or me, purse-lipped, persistent shrew. It was as if he had willfully taken away the man I knew and replaced him with some vaguely similar mumbly asshole. And the infuriating part was that the asshole appeared to think I was so stupid I wouldn't notice the switch. I did my best to distance myself. I gave the asshole other names. Arthur, spelled backwards, was the boozy nodder, Rutra. And Repep was, with Art's later inevitable discovery of cocaine, the speedy one. I got mad but bit my tongue. I was obsessed with the book, and Art became obsessed with me again, and no wonder. I was a sympathetic, insightful, eager listener, filled with admiration for what he told me and how he told it. It was made clear to him on a daily basis that absolutely nothing interested me as much as he did. I frequently cooked for him, worried about his health, his moods, and delighted in his lovemaking, though now that drugs were in the picture, sex for him was less compelling, and that was a disappointment, making me grumpy. And grumpier still when I acknowledged that my occasional sexual frustration, like my jealousy, was a blemish on the supposed high-mindedness of my intentions. So I tried to keep quiet and demand nothing of him really, but that he show up, remain conscious, and tell his story. The next section is called Moving In. Junior, Art's mother told me once, always was one to run everything into the ground. I told Art I would put that on his tombstone. Art demanded more, always, of anyone and anything. He wanted more of me. He was sick of living with Bob and Nikki. He wanted to move in. I liked things as they were. Over my bed, on the white painted narrow lath, I'd carefully thumbtacked a complete collection of family snapshots. In dramatic black and white, my mother as a dancer when she toured with Martha Graham. Deckle-edged me at 7 in a New York winter, bundled up, grinning, gap-toothed at the feet of big bronze Peter Stuyvesant. Later on, in brightly fading color, in the Arizona desert, me at 8, squinting in my underwear and pigtails beside my mother, wearing turquoise beads and peasant blouse on our journey west. My daughter, my cousins, laid out like overlapping tiles. Here was a map of my life. I didn't want Art moving in, and it wasn't just because of the smoking, drinking, and drugs, good reasons, the ones I gave him. I'd been forced to cohabit for 3.5 years with crowds of certifiable crazies, and I wanted a room of my own. I wasn't to have it. Not then. Once, years later, when I was upbraiding some friend of Art's for giving him drugs, the fellow, full of guilt and self-pity, pleaded, "But you know how he is." He wanted money from me for what Art had gotten from him. He didn't get it. But I knew how Art was. Chinese water torture. It varied in intensity, but it was steady, his pleading, a continuous entreating. With importuning, he was like those people who take flimsy balloons of various shapes and colors and twist them into animals and objects. He gave begging different interesting shapes so that you never quite got bored enough to stop hearing it. With some inward ear, you heard it, the coax, the wheedle, his inflated need. So he kept bugging me, "Let me move in." And circumstances were changing in ways that made it seem like an okay idea. Bob and Nikki weren't really paying him. They gave him room and board, the use of a car, and walking around money just like Synanon. Maybe $20 a week for working a 12-hour day, processing deliveries, and doing the books. Through gossiping with his friends down the street, I'll get to them later, Art was inspired to apply for ATD, Aid to the Totally Disabled, welfare. At first, because he had cirrhosis and a huge inoperable ventral hernia, he applied based on his supposed physical incapacity. When that was denied, he went back again and screamed at a psychiatrist, convincing him that he was crazy. He came to my place after and said triumphantly, "I scared the guy to death." He started pacing, acting it out. He was just cowering. I really raged. I told him that I knew they wouldn't give me anything because I'm white. I raged and raged. I was stalking around the room, man. The psychiatrist was practically hiding under his desk, just trembling. You should have heard me. I told him that the black people get food stamps and everything, but because I'm white, I get discriminated against. Art beamed. I really scared the guy. And what I said, that was all true. It just shows you, man, there's nothing like the truth. The psychiatrist was not a fool. Art was crazy. He'd proved it with his life. He got the money, enough to enable him to leave the bakery and move in with me. He said, "We can get married now." This income he got for his insanity was supposed to prove to me he was good husband material. I loved Art because he made me laugh. He knew that and knew I'd be impressed with his story. Also, he said he'd pay all my rent. I could stop working and just write the book. That idea was really appealing, and I did manage to do it for a while. He was an old-fashioned man who longed for marriage and whose pride required he be protector and breadwinner. The problem was drugs. But I had a naive belief that methadone maintenance might keep Art out of trouble. I told him that if he'd get on the VA methadone program and stop smoking, I'd let him share my place. He agreed. The no smoking thing lasted a month or two, but methadone maintenance kept Art off the streets for quite a while. And so my muse moved in with me, and he didn't take up as much space as I'd feared. I only realize now, remembering the circumscription of his movements, his relative stillness, and the seeming narrowness of the area he occupied, that he must have gotten his manner of sharing space from prison, where you do unto others as you would have them do. He stayed out of my way, and yet he seemed to delight in my habit of being all over the place. It amused him to watch me sprawl. He despaired of and chuckled at my untidiness. I'd constantly disrupt our patterns, which he clung to like the spinster bookkeeper he partly was. He thought I was a lot of fun. He hardly listened to my continuous chatter, but said he didn't have to. He said he liked the sound of it. He believed I was incredibly smart, educated, classy. He told me I was beautiful. Reader, he loved me.